Hello and welcome to Positively United. Today, Sunday, the 10th of May 2026, the day after we played out an excruciatingly awful 0-0 draw with Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. A game, by the way, that Sunderland should have won. I think won easily, frankly. And had it not been for the heroics of our goalkeeper, we would not have got a point out of that game. More later. This video is a combined match reaction and player ratings video. There's no point doing a separate match reaction. Look, I'm not going to hear any of the excuses that are going around like, oh, well, United have already qualified for Champions League. They know they're going to finish third. You know, they would have known that the result of the the Liverpool-Chelsea game was 1-1. No one's going to catch United in third place. Third place is virtually nailed on. We know a Champions League qualification's already done. So there's a fair amount of, well, you know, what do you expect? There's nothing riding on these games. I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all. And standards have to be set higher than that. I actually don't think yesterday's performance was due to being on the beach syndrome. I really don't. I think yesterday's performance was a consequence of our paper-thin squad. Because what we saw yesterday is that we only have to experience a minor number of injuries or drops in form, and our squad is not good enough. Now, I kind of no, we all know this anyway, but sometimes you do need to be kind of provoked into relearning something or appreciating something again. And boy, yesterday was a wake-up call, wasn't it? Look, I go back to the stuff I said in January, or as it turned out, what was it? When did the transfer window end? Was it the 1st or 2nd of February, something like that? But let's call it the January transfer window. Look, I'd hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. It was awful we went through that January transfer window without loaning at least one midfielder. We needed a midfield strengthening in January. It was clear and obvious to everybody, and for whatever reason, we didn't do it. I don't believe that there weren't any available players. I just don't think we wanted to spend the money, or I don't think we wanted to make the commitment. Although why a 4-month, 5-month, 6-month loan is a commitment, I've no idea. But yesterday we saw, with Casemiro being injured and not playing, that if you take out either of Casemiro or Manu out of our midfield, we are absolutely stuffed. And we've had it recently. We had it. Manu was missing from, was it the Leeds game? With his injury. Casemiro missing yesterday. You take out either Casemiro or Manu and our midfield is finished. And that's because we don't have a proper midfielder of sufficient quality to bring in. Now, as it transpired yesterday, Ugarte wasn't even an option because he was injured. But if he even hadn't been injured, he's not good enough. So we brought Mason Mount in. I'll come to player ratings later. I don't think Mount was particularly bad or anything like that yesterday. But he's a very different player to Casemiro, very different player to Ugarte. And Manu suffered as a consequence of the fact he didn't have a Casemiro or an Ugarte alongside him. So it completely disrupted our midfield. And we were run through in the first half. Absolutely ran through. Sunderland should have scored in the first half. Lammens, I'll talk more about Lammens later, but 2 excellent saves. Sunderland should have gone in at half-time 1 or even 2-0 up, and that would have been the end of the game, because we certainly didn't have anything about us that would have brought us back into the game yesterday. So we were lucky. And well, we're not lucky. I'll take that back. What Lammens did yesterday was not luck. It was good goalkeeping. Lammens won as a point yesterday. Absolutely nailed on his point. But yeah. Absolutely paper-thin squad that needs significant investment in the summer. I must admit, I have modified my views on what we need to buy in the summer as the second half of the season has worn on. And I will present a video sometime next week, or I should say this week, as it's Sunday, about the positions I think we need to definitely strengthen. I'm not going to go into who ought to be in those positions, who we ought to be buying. I think that's a different conversation. I think the important thing, first of all, is to establish what we need to buy for where on the pitch, and then we can move on from there. But yeah, disappointing performance, disappointing result. It was a regression, wasn't it, to terrible bad habits of the past. But it does show that that squad is not good enough. By the way, before I say anything else, I'm not using the squad deficiencies to run away from the fact that I don't think it was Michael Carrick's best performance yesterday in his second term as head coach. I think it was a subpar performance, and I'll mark up Carrick in the player ratings. But yeah, I think he made mistakes yesterday. So anyway, let's get to the player ratings. So this is the team we started off with. Lammens in goal. Mazraoui instead of Dalot, which was a surprise. Maguire, Martinez, Shaw, Mount, again a surprise. They kept the Casemiro injury quiet, didn't they? So Mount came in for Casemiro, playing alongside Mainu. Diallo, Ahmad, Fernandes and Cunha as the advanced midfielders, and Xerxes playing up front. Now, as you would have recalled yesterday, in my predicted 11, I said I wanted Xerxes to play if Šeško was injured. And so I was actually pleased to see Xerxes getting a start. Because he needs starts if, as I said in my predicted 11 yesterday, unless Man United know for a certain that he's going in the summer. Well, actually, let me go back on what I've just said. I'm going to correct myself. Xerxes needed to play yesterday in any case, whether he's staying or whether he's going. Because if he's staying, he needs opportunities to play and to fit himself into this team. If he's going, he needs to showcase himself. So it was right to play Xerxes. Going to come back to the defence. Martinez. If you follow me on X, if you watch my player predicted 11 yesterday, you will not be surprised when I say I was very, very, very disappointed to see Aiden Heaven dropped in favour of Martinez. I thought that was a terrible decision by Carrick. Really bad. Let me explain why. Heaven has done absolutely nothing wrong. He's played really, really well since he's been back in the team. I think a player playing consistently well, actually really well on a few occasions, I think that deserves to be rewarded. He deserved to play, irrespective of any of the other context around. He deserved to play. Certainly didn't deserve to get dropped. The reason Martinez hadn't been playing for the last 3 games is because he lost his head in the game against Leeds, pulled a player's hair, got sent off, rightly so, and got a 3-month match suspension. That kind of irresponsible behaviour shouldn't be rewarded with an instant recall. Sorry, it shouldn't. Martinez, at the very least, should have had 1 extra game to think through his stupidity on the bench. So every way you look at that decision, it was the wrong decision. Sorry, Carrick, it was wrong. Heaven shouldn't have been dropped because he's playing well. Martinez shouldn't be brought back in the team straight away because he let the side down against Leeds. He was ill-disciplined. I know I'm in a minority thinking that. I'm sticking with it because I genuinely believe it's true. Yeah, I was really disappointed by that call by Carrick. Mount playing alongside Mainu. Well, the choice there, wouldn't it have been to have put Mount in the number 10 role and withdraw Fernandes? But I can completely understand why Carrick went with Mount in the midfield and Fernandes holding on to his role, because Fernandes has just been sensational in that role in the second half of the season. So why fix it if it's not broke? Actually, as the game was played, and I think we started the second half, didn't we, with Mount in the 10 and Ferdinand withdrawn, but then they swapped. Was it about after 10 minutes? So, and whether that was by instruction or whether that was them just deciding to move positions, who knows? But yeah, I think it was right to play Mount in that position. And Mount was by far Not our worst player yesterday. He's not a natural defensive midfield player. Of course he isn't, but he wasn't bad. He wasn't disastrous by any stretch of imagination. As I said, playing Xerxes made complete sense. And Mbumo being left on the bench and Ahmad being played, I know that surprised a lot of people. I know it angered some people. And actually, I would have preferred to have seen Mbumo play rather than Ahmad, but I can completely see the reasoning. Ahmad's not been playing brilliantly. He made a terrible mistake against Liverpool. Maybe playing him yesterday was a way of letting him play himself back into form. Mbumo suffered as a consequence, but Mbumo did come on. It's a difficult one, that. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. So, but that was the other choice to be made, wasn't it? Let's get to the player ratings. Now, as you know, with the player ratings, I start with every player on a 6, and then I mark them up or down depending on how they play in the game. Yesterday, I'm taking a different approach to yesterday's game. The overall performance was just so under par, so bad. I'm going to dock every single player, apart from one, a mark. They were all starting on 5, which is below average. So they're all starting on 5, apart from Lammens. And I usually leave my man of the match to the very end to build up suspense. What's the absolute point today? There's no point in holding back. Lammens was excellent. He made 2 excellent saves, very brave to snuff out a chance in the first half at the feet of the Sunderland attacker. I just can't remember which one, but really brave. Lammens was our outstanding player yesterday. An 8 from me. He started at a 6. He goes up to an 8 because of the good things he did. Easily the man of the match. It's just no contest. No one else comes anywhere close. We get a point yesterday because of Sonny Lammens. And for anybody who is still unbelievably banging on about the fact that how the last summer's transfer window wasn't good and wasn't a success, shut up. Seriously, mate, shut up. Lammens is a superb purchase. He's going to be our goalkeeper for years. If it was Lammens alone last summer, it would have been a successful purchase. But we got Cunha, Mbumo and Shesko as well. No, that was an excellent summer's purchases. And Lammens is the pick of the crop. To get him for, what was it, £19 million, what was it, 21 million euros. It's just an astonishing bargain. By the way, whatever process we've got in place for identified Lammens as the player to go for, and remember, I think I'm right in saying that there was a lot of talk at the time that we were going to go for Martinez at Aston Villa. And our previous coach obviously wanted him. But the hierarchy, the management structure that we now have, and which is the right thing, by the way, had scouted out Lammens and decided to go for Lammens because they decided he was the future. That was a superb decision. And whatever process led to that, with Amrim not getting his Martinez and the club getting Lammens, which is a much, much better buy, whatever process they used to arrive at decision, repeat that over and over and over again because it worked brilliantly with Lammens. Let's do that again. So he gets an 8, man of the match. Going across the back 4, they all get a 5 because that's where they all started. I didn't feel any need to knock them down any lower, but I didn't see any need to mark anyone up. I could talk about players individually, but to be honest with you, they didn't actually concede a goal. That's quite something in the circumstances. And they were playing in front of a midfield that just wasn't doing its defensive job for all sorts of reasons. So it was tough on Martinez and it was tough on Maguire, and they were exposed. They really were exposed and ran through. But they weren't getting any help from what was in front of them either. The miss of Casemiro was huge. Mazraoui had another chance to shine and didn't. But you wouldn't get rid of him, would you? Because he's such a useful player across that back 4 and can play in midfield and can play wide. So you wouldn't get rid of him. But he's not making the case why he should play, for example, instead of Dalot. We've got a problem at right back is a problem for us, just as much as our left back is a problem. We don't have a Premiership winning quality fullback at either right or left back at the moment. And that's a problem. Martinez was okay, but Heaven would have done just as well or even better. Maguire's deficiencies were exposed a bit yesterday because he was being ran against. But he did put a solid performance in other aspects, so there's no reason to mark him down. So the whole back four gets a 5. Shaw, Martinez, Maguire, Mazraoui, a 5. Central midfield, defensive midfield, Mainu, he really suffered as a consequence of not having a Casemiro or an Ugarte beside him. Let's drop the names. A combative box-to-box supportive midfielder, which is what we need to buy to replace Casemiro, by the way. He suffered as a consequence. 5. Mount, now this is going to really bug some people, I guess. I'm giving him a 5.5. Why? Well, he's come under an awful lot of criticism over the last few hours. But if you look at the stats, he was, between Mainu and Mount, he was the player who was putting in the defensive tackles. He was the player that was doing the interceptions. He put himself around for 90 minutes. He did the best I think he could in the circumstances. That is not his natural position. That is not his skill set. But I think he gave a really honest performance. I was tempted to give him a 6 because of all the players who got 5s. To me, Mount was the one who actually probably was a 6, but I just feel bad about giving any of the players a 6. He gets a 5.5 from me. It wasn't a bad performance. Wasn't good, wasn't bad, a little bit below because everybody was a little bit below. A 5.5 to a 6 is what Mount gets from me. Our forward attackers, 5 across the board. I'll come to Kuna in just a moment. Diallo, Ahmad's just not. I mean, you'd imagined that playing at the Stadium of Light, where he had such a good season, that he would have been fired up to play really well. But he didn't. But that might have been because the overall team just didn't perform either. Sometimes it's difficult for an individual player to break out of the mediocrity of what's around them. Fernandes, newly named Football Writers Player of the Year. Congratulations, Bruno. Well deserved. Hope it's the first of a few awards you're going to get this season. First United player in 16 years to get that. The last one was Wayne Rooney in 2010. He's starting at last to be seen as the magnificent player that he is. But yesterday, he suffered from the malaise that they all did. Underwhelming performance all around. Fernandes obviously wasn't our worst player, but he wasn't our best. That was Lammens. So a 5. Cunha, a 5. Amazing how he woke up with 2 minutes of injury time being played. In fact, that could be said for a few of them. The dive at the end of the game, which was embarrassing. I genuinely believe that Carrick needs to take Cunha aside the next time they meet and say, cut it. Cut it. Can't remember who said it last night, but somebody did. They said, Ashley Young, of course, used to do this, and eventually it caught up on Ashley Young. Eventually, Ashley Young got to a part of his career at United where he would be genuinely fouled and the referee would wave it away because Ashley Young's reputation was like a cloud above him. And Cunha needs to cut it out. That was embarrassing yesterday. Referee was absolutely right to book him. It was terrible. It was an awful dive. So I was tempted to knock him down to a 4.5, but I'll leave it at 5 because I think 4.5 wouldn't be a reflection of how he played. Xerxes. There's always a danger of singling out a player and making them the scapegoat, and I absolutely don't want to do that with Xerxes. As you can see, I've dropped everybody down to a 5 for collective responsibility. They all deserve a kicking, apart from Lammens. But Xerxes doesn't deserve as good a score as the other players on the pitch. He was lamentable, I thought, yesterday. As I said at the beginning of this video, he should have played for one of two reasons. If he's staying at United next season, he needs to play himself into this team. If he's going in the summer, he needs to showcase himself to potential purchasers. He did neither. Now, I know some players look less energetic than others. Doesn't mean to say they're less good. So I'm going to mention Berbatov in this respect. Berbatov occasionally looked as if he wasn't putting the effort in. But it was totally wrong. It was just his particular style of play. It's unfortunate in some respects. So I think it actually meant he never got the absolute pinnacle of recognition that he should have got. With Xerxes, I'm tempted to say that it's just a lack of interest, which is not acceptable. Maybe so demoralised by everything that's happened to him at United. But if I'm being honest, I've got a horrible feeling with Xerxes. He never, ever, ever wanted to be here. And it shows in his play. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that. Being unfair. I don't know. But there's one thing about it. Xerxes has no future at Manchester United. He's definitely got to go in the summer. And this just shows up an inadequacy and a deficiency we have in our squad. If Šeško is unavailable, we don't have a centre forward to bring in place. We don't have a reserve centre forward. Chido, well, he's not getting anywhere near, is he? It'll be fascinating to see if he breaks through next season. But even if he is breaking through next season, we need another forward. Remember, when we won the treble in 1998-99, we had 4 forwards for 2 positions. Cole, York, Solskjaer, and Sheringham. And Solskjaer and Sheringham are the players who scored the goals to win us the European Cup. Sorry, Champions League. We need more choice up front. It's not Mbeumo. It's not. It could be Cunha occasionally. I think he does have the capability of playing there, but it's certainly not Xerxes. 4 out of 10. Finally, the manager. Oh well, sorry, I've jumped the gun. Let's have a look at how we ended the game. Dorgu came on, of course. So Dorgu came on, and Mbeumo came on. I'm giving them both 5.5 because I reduced everybody down to a 5. But actually, I think they were quite lively when they came on. They didn't elevate themselves up to a 6, but we did actually improve in the second half a little bit, and towards the end a lot. And Dorgu, who, I thought he looked pretty lively. I thought Mbeumo looked good when he was on, or reasonably better. Well, good compared to the other players on the pitch. So they both get 5.5 from me, but it's still wrapped up in a generally overall poor performance. I've already done my man of the match, as you know. Did it right at the beginning. Lammens. It was just obvious. So, to the manager. I was absolutely furious with his decision to drop Heaven. I thought it was wrong. I was really poorly judged. He got that really badly wrong. Substitutions. Well, in all fairness to him, he brought Xerxes off pretty quickly, didn't he? 65th minute, I think. But he had both Fletcher twins on the bench. Didn't seem to consider using them. If I'd have been the manager yesterday, after about 65, 70 minutes, I'd have blown my stack and I definitely would have made some substitutions beyond what Carrick did. Because I would have wanted to have really, really shook that game up. I kind of almost would have been willing to accept a defeat as a consequence of shaking things up, just to shake things up. I hope that doesn't sound bonkers, but I would have just been so furious by what I was looking at on the pitch. I would have wanted to make a point, a statement. Carrick obviously didn't. As you know, because I've already said it on this channel, I think the club should announce Carrick as the permanent full-time head coach for next season, because I think we need to move on. And there's no viable alternatives, and he's done a really good job. But you know what? Two things can be right, or more things can be right at the same time. Carrick, yes, has done a great job thus far. Yes, Carrick should be the next permanent head coach at Manchester United. Because I don't believe there's anybody better qualified at the moment to do the job. But did he perform well yesterday? No. Wrong team selection didn't impact the tactics and the team enough during the game. Poor from Carrick yesterday. 4 out of 10. Yeah, 4 out of 10 for Carrick. Really disappointing yesterday. Really disappointing. I very, very much hope to see something different in our final home game. I hope to God Casemiro is fit for that game, because he deserves a send-off. He really does. I really hope he plays. I hope he has a fantastic game. I hope we play really well, because I think there'll be a few players who'll be waving goodbye to Old Trafford in that game, not just Casemiro. Xerxes will. Yeah, Xerxes definitely will. Yeah, not the only player saying goodbye, Casemiro. Not the only player who should be saying goodbye. Yeah, so let's hope for a big upturn in that game, in our next home game. And by the way, our final game at Brighton won really well yesterday. If we go to Brighton with that mindset that we went into that game against Sunderland, we're going to get absolutely our arse handed to us on a plate. And I do not want the season to peter out in like a draw, win and a loss or something like that. I really don't. I really believe Carrick needs to think in this way too. He needs to go out on a high. He needs to go out with purpose and resolution. He needs to go out with a message to people that this is the man that's taking us in the right direction. What's your memory of the end of last season? Losing against Tottenham in the Europa Cup final and Europa League final, and that speech, that weird speech from Emma at the end of the season saying the good times are coming, when you were looking around and thinking, are they? Let's not have those as the memories at the end of this season, Carrick. Let's have some memories at the end of a season transformed, rescued from failure, and with a sense of real anticipation about what might be next season. Not a vague promise, but some actual evidence on the pitch. Granted, this summer transfer window needs to be absolutely huge, bigger than last summer. But can we please have some positives to end the season on? Yesterday was unacceptable. Let's not have it again. Okay? If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like what I do on this channel, please subscribe. If you know of any other United fans you think would like what I do on this channel, tell them about it and persuade them to subscribe as well. Once you've subscribed, hit the reminder button and you'll be told about any future videos that I put up here. Follow me on X. On X, I'm Positively United, United spelled UTD. I post on X every day, I think. And I post on X more when I post videos onto this channel, so you'll get more from me in terms of numbers of communications on X. Yeah, but that's all from this sort of combined match reaction and player ratings video. Next video will be the 5 insights video. Probably try and do that today. No point in holding back, I don't think. You may have been able to guess some of the insights from what I said during this video. But until then, if you can, always remain positively united.